Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Hope everyone's had a nice weekend. I just wanted to do a hopefully not too long of a YouTube to discuss what happened on Friday and a few other small little tidbits of the week. So there was an article that came out on Friday by the website CTFN. I've discussed CTFN in the past, but basically, for those of you who don't know, CTFN is a paid subscription service that primarily focuses on M&A and regulatory affairs, and they try to get an edge through sources to publish articles for their clients to make them money. There's a lot of companies that do this, and I have my own opinions about what I think about this business and this business model. I quite frankly don't like it very much. I feel like it's paying for inside information in some respects, and I don't think that information should be disseminated that way. That said, people pay for this service, and when it comes out in real time, it's not appropriate to share that information until the people that have paid for it have the right to trade on it, because I guess it's illegal to trade on stuff like this. The information that came out on Friday, I'm not going to share or read the whole article. I don't have it. I was just I was read it on the phone by somebody, actually by multiple people. So if you're CTFN, you don't think that there's one person that shared this with me. And I'm going to touch the highlights. So Bloomberg came out with a synopsis of the CTFN article towards the end of the day on Friday, and that was why the stock had an additional pop. What Bloomberg said was that CTFN confirms that the Lonza inspection had been completed by December 10th, Thursday, which is when we thought it would end it. What's interesting is that the most interesting stuff inside the CTFN article was not that. We all knew that the inspection was over last Thursday. Well, most people did. Some people had conspiracy theories that they were going to come back to the plant on the Monday, but of course they didn't. So what did the CTFN article say that was most interesting? Well, first they said that there was a meeting last week. Bristol had an internal meeting, and during that internal meeting, they said that the only thing left to do for Lysocell is to respond to the FDA on the inspection, that labeling is complete and everything else is done. So we thought that was the case, but it's of course very good to hear it, that all they have to do is respond to the inspection. Now, of course, we didn't know if there was any Form 483s, and unfortunately, the CTFN article does not share this. They did not learn it as well. So, of course, what would they have to respond to if they weren't responding to a Form 483? Nobody really knows the answer to that. At the bottom of the CTFN article, they got a quote from a Bristol spokesperson that basically said that Bristol is committed to meeting the CVR milestones and is working closely with the FDA, but ultimately the timing of which is set by the FDA. I'm paraphrasing, I'm not reading line by line. So let's unpack all of this. So the person, I believe, though I have no way of knowing this, but I assume that the CTFN source is the same source that they use for their September and their October articles. I think they had one in September and then they had one in October. And for the most part, this source has been pretty accurate. The September article or the early October article said that that the FDA was going to inspect the plants. Of course, they didn't end up inspecting Dallas. But I'm guessing it was scheduled and it was canceled. The source also said that the previous 2 weeks ago, I think, or a week ago, that the Bothell 483s would not be an impediment to approval. And that still seems to be the case, but we won't know, of course, until it's approved. What is in this article and how do we kind of unpack this? So if they tell us that the only thing left to do is respond to the FDA inspection, then that means you probably insinuate that they haven't responded yet. We don't know when the meeting happened. with Bristol and the employees. We don't even know what kind of meeting it was. Was it an all-company meeting where employees can submit questions? Was it a meeting specifically about Lysocell with Juno employees and people that are going to be launching the drug? Like I said, what day did the meeting happen on? We don't know any of the answers to any of these questions. It does seem like that from that language, the only thing left is to respond to. You think they haven't responded yet. Now, that's not that concerning to me because I thought it would take until probably this Monday. I'm coming out of thin air with this, by the way, but I assume if you had till this Monday, that would be about 10 or 11 calendar days from when they ended the inspection. I thought that would be plenty of time for Bristol to turn it around. It's important to note that, and I've said this before, that when you look at response times of 483s up to this date in the history of the FDA, they really are good comps because the companies never had any urgency to respond faster than the 15 business days because they always had months before the PDUFA date. So there would be no incentive to get it turned around in 5 business days or 3 business days or 7 business days. In this situation, of course, there's no PDUFA date anymore. And you have to believe that the FDA went down there December 3rd to inspect for a reason. And there was some sort of time frame that they were trying to work with. Now, of course, people will say that Bristol is incentivized to take the whole 15 business days and then have this go to January. And you've heard me say many times, I don't believe that's the case. In fact, everything they've shown us so far is that they are trying to work for the CVR, not against it. Which leads me to why I think the most interesting part of the whole article is the quote from the spokesperson, which is that they're committed to making the milestones. Well, of course, they have to say that. That's part of the diligent efforts that they have to do in the contract. But for them to say ultimately the timing is set by the FDA, they can't really say that unless they return the 483 response, because the 483 response is actually up to Bristol. Now, I had one person speculate that they might have been referring to the fact that the FDA has given them a 15-day business day mandate to respond, and that's the timing set by the FDA. I don't really buy that. I think that the only way you could say it's in the FDA's hands is if you give the FDA enough time to turn this around. There was another note on Friday by another sell-side firm that quoted a regulatory expert, and they said that they think the FDA could turn around an approval within 1 business day of having the inspection package wrapped up. So that would require the response from the 483s, and maybe that takes a day, for them to read the response and approve it. And then within 1 business day, you could probably have the drug approved after the fact. There's plenty of time. Okay, let's talk about timing. So if they do respond on Monday, what does that mean? They have Tuesday, they have Wednesday, 2 full days, and the rest of Monday to get it turned around, and could definitely get it approved by Wednesday, business close. Let's say they don't respond this week. Let's say Bristol takes all the way until next Monday, which would have been something like 17 or 18 calendar days. Can the FDA approve it the final week of the year? Well, FDA hasn't approved the drug the final week of the year, I don't believe, since 2012. I know they haven't approved the drug the final week of the year in the last 5 years, but they did approve 6 or 7 or 8 drugs between 2004 and 2012. We also spoke a few weeks ago to a consultant, and she's told us that there are people working at the FDA the last week of the year. So of course they can get it approved that week. The question you have to ask yourself is, if the FDA wants this done by the end of the year and they want this, off their desk, if the 483 is responded to by that Monday, and FDA has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 4 business days, can they get the necessary employees to review it and sign off on it? This is not a normal situation. So you have to think that there is a dedicated group of people right now trying to complete this review. And that's, again, why they went in to inspect December 3rd. I don't believe that you will have a problem getting those signatures. First of all, nobody's going on vacation. So you might take a vacation day. But we were told also by this consultants that plenty of FDA officials work weekends too. You're having a stereotype of being a government agency. But if the idea behind this is to get this drug to market and they have some sort of push to do this, there's no reason to believe they can't work next week, the last week of the year. If you look at the drug approvals of this year so far, CBER, the one that is working with the oncology group to review Lysocell, has not had a single drug approved since July. And that drug was Tecartus, I forget exactly the name of it, which was the previous CAR T approved under Kite. And they press released it. And in the press release, they said that this is the fifth or sixth gene or cell therapy ever approved by the FDA. So 2 points there. First point, CBER doesn't approve a lot of drugs. In fact, if you look through the few years of press releases, outside of those gene and cell therapies, they've all been vaccines or some form of vaccine or a treatment for some tropical disease like Ebola or something like that. I now very much believe they will press release Lysocell, because I didn't realize how rare gene therapy and cell therapy approvals are. I mean, I knew it was rare, but I didn't know that it was still such a unique new thing, given there's hundreds of gene and cell therapies under investigation right now. So if you believe the FDA is going to press release it, that usually happens. I think somebody did an analysis on this sometime between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern time. So it could definitely happen the hour after the market closes. I also believe very strongly that if the FDA doesn't press release this, Bristol Myers won't wait till the next morning to tell us, given the importance of the situation. They'll put the press release out that evening or as soon as they have it. CDER, so CDER is the agency that reviews most drugs. If you look back of the last 5 years, they approved a ton of drugs the week of Christmas. They never approved any drug the last week of the year, but they approved a ton of drugs the week of Christmas. And I went through and looked at oncology drugs and some of the more important drugs, and almost all of those approvals the week of Christmas had PDUFA dates in February, March, and April of the following year. None of them had a January PDUFA date. So there's definitely a precedence to pull forward PDUFA dates and get drugs approved next week before the end of the year. You can just look at the numbers, you can see it. It's not a result of randomness that the PDUFA dates just happen to fall in December, and that's why there's so many drugs approved in December. No, they're pulling forward PDUFA dates. Last week, Macrogenics had a PDUFA date and had a drug approved, and we learned that the inspection was 6 weeks ago at the end of October, early November. I just want to make it clear there's no read-through at all here for Lysocell. I'm kind of confused why people thought there would be a read-through. I mean, that was just a typical, process, right? They had a PDUFA date, it got approved, and they inspected sometime in the past, right? This situation is anything but normal. So let's say I told you that inspection happened in July. Would we say that it takes 5 months for the FDA to turn around from inspection to approval? Well, of course not, right? That just means that they inspected 5 months earlier and they approved around the PDUFA date, like they always do. It's reasonable to believe that Macrogenics had other issues that they were finishing, like labeling, over the last 6 weeks, and that's the reason why it got approved a few days before the end of the year. It also was not a breakthrough designation drug either, just for the record. So there's no read-through there. I just wanted to be clear. One thing I wanted to talk about, which I thought was pretty cool, but again, the rest of this podcast is just going to be mostly tea leaves, and I'm going to talk about some price action when I think is going to happen next week and the last week. There's a website called Cafe Pharma, and mostly it's all anonymous, and it's mostly disgruntled employees posting on there. It's not hedge fund people, but for something like this, you definitely get anonymous finance people posting lies and rumors or whatever. So you have to discount greatly anything you see on that board. But I thought it was really interesting that there was a dormant thread on Lysocell and Idacell, and it hadn't been posted in weeks. And on December 1st, the day that Juno was there at Houston preparing for the inspection, there was a post, and all the post said was, "Do you know if we are able to purchase the CVR, or are we not allowed?" And the wording behind it makes me almost certain it is an insider or someone that works at Bristol, and they were genuinely curious whether they were allowed to purchase the CVR. There's many different ways you would word that or post if you were trying to troll longs or troll shorts or whatever. There's no real shorts here. I don't think you'd word it like that. And a few of my friends agree with me. They think it almost certainly was an insider. Now, maybe that insider just knew an inspection was coming and they were just going to trade it for a pop. But I don't think that's the case, because I don't think they would know there was private investigators watching the facility, and they probably wouldn't know that it was going to pop on the inspection. The only thing I can come up with was that they were privy or are privy to a time frame, and they were generally they don't understand anything about inside information. Clearly, they are not allowed to trade the CVR in that information, and they were curious if they could purchase it. So I'll put a link of the posting. It's right here. The last posting on that page. Again, there's nothing to read in there. I just think that's interesting, so I'm sharing it, whatever. The other thing I thought was interesting, again, nothing really to read here, but on Twitter, if you look at the Twitter accounts for Brianzi and for Abecma, get the word right, ABECMA, you'll see that they were created. Abecma, by the way, is the trade name for Idacel. I'll link them right now. You can see this. They were created, Brianza was created in December of 2019, which is when they filed the NDA for Lysocell, and Abecma was created in April 2020, which is when they created filed the NDA for Idacel. Well, on December 3rd, someone on Twitter, figured out it was December 3rd, they created 3 new Twitter accounts, and all of them relate to kind of things you would use for marketing for healthcare workers and stuff. Here's one. Here's another. Now, this could have been a hedge fund that created these backup accounts. That seems rather unlikely to me. It happened on December 3rd, which was the day that the inspection happened. If it was a hedge fund, I think the hedge fund would have probably tried to highlight this at some point. They try to, I don't know, rip the stock or something. So I think these are real Twitter accounts. What does it mean about approval by the end of the year? It unfortunately doesn't tell us anything, right? It just means that they're preparing. They're preparing for approval. And again, I thought that was interesting. Government shutdown. If the government shuts down, will that affect the next 2 weeks? The answer is no. You can go Google FDA PDUFA partial government shutdown. Just Google those words, and you'll see in the early part of 2019, you'll find 5 different articles, and it all says that PDUFA reviews are funded through user fees, and as long as they've already had an ongoing review, that it should not derail them at all. It only affects new PDUFA filings. So I'm not worried about that at all. I also don't think there'll be a government shutdown. I just wanted to mention that. And finally, the last thing before I talk about price action is we were told last week that they did get the 50% they needed to change the trustee. Now, I don't have any updates on whether Bristol's agreed to it, or I obviously don't think the trustee's been changed yet, but the 50% threshold has been hit. So that's good news. And that probably will keep Bristol honest. Oh, one last thing about the CTFN article. When Bristol does these internal meetings, again, I don't know if it was just with Juno or if it was the whole company. Remember, they're speaking to CVR holders. I mean, most of Juno anybody that had any stock-based compensation at Juno owns the CVR. So the company's well aware of this. And when they're discussing this with the employees and saying things like the only thing left to do is respond to the FDA on inspection, labeling is complete. I don't think the company would be so free with their words if they were concerned about the end of the year not being made. It's truly my belief that the company has a time frame with the FDA, and it's in all of their control. It's in the company's control, and it's in the FDA's control. And it's only a black box to you and I. It's not a black box to them. So I strongly believe that that this is going to get done in the next 2 weeks. Am I nervous? Yes, I'm very nervous. I have a very big position. It's as big as it's ever been. It's still the same 30%, but it's grown from a share size perspective because other stocks have gone up, like I told you last time, and I keep buying more. I absolutely do have the intention to trim it if it does go up a lot from here. Like I said last time, I don't know if it's going to go up to the level that I would trim it at. I'm not going to share what that level is. I think I did last time, but I'm not going to share it on this YouTube. It's unlikely I would buy more unless it got below $1.50. I think you're going to see a very interesting dynamic next week, because there's a large group of people that think if it's not approved next week, there's really no chance of it being approved the final week of the year. And so I don't think that's true, and I definitely won't be selling it. But I can see it being for sale in a kind of heavy manner come Wednesday and definitely come Thursday. The FDA is closed on Thursday, so you won't get approval on Thursday. So, and Thursday it's a half day in the stock market. So I definitely think it'll sell off on Thursday. It might not sell off on Wednesday, because Wednesday is actually the most likely date for approval, right? If Bristol responds on Monday, you have to give the FDA 2.5, 3 business days to turn this around. And that's most likely to happen I would think, on Wednesday afternoon. Remember, even though we don't know what the time frame is, the FDA and Bristol does, right? So for them, it's not, oh, we just made the end of the year. They might be planning. They might have a soft circle date for what day they want to get this done with. And Bristol might have been told, please get the 483s back to us by that date. And with that, let's take some questions. Did BMY internally inform its employees of Lonza inspection completion? Yes, they did. What is the best type of cat? It's a great question. I don't know you, Big Red, so you might actually be here for cats, and I'm guessing you've left the chat, which is sad, because I would love to talk about cats with you. I think my favorite cat would be, there's an expensive cat you can buy that doesn't shed, because I was once looking at getting a cat in my 20s, and I'm allergic, as all cat YouTube lovers know about my cat allergies. And there was a company that was breeding cats to make them non-allergenic. Now, I'm not talking about hairless cats. I mean like actual manufactured cats to try to keep them from being have allergies. And you should Google that, because it's pretty cool. And I thought about getting that once, but I did not. A hybrid inspection that consists of a 6-day long on-site inspection is unusually long and suggests a complex 43. Sure, I think that's a good point, Richard. Yeah, so they said it was a hybrid inspection, and in the article, and I believe a lot of the inspection was done in advance, and the paperwork was done in advance. So he's insinuating that because it was 6 days on site plus a lot of paperwork and hybrid before, there must be tons of problems with this plant. I respectfully disagree. As Jing has said, this plant is huge. I think the plant is multiples the size of the Juneau plant, which took 7 days to inspect. And I just think it might take a lot of time. And it's also possible that the FDA has said if you respond to the 483s specific to the Juneau, the lysocell part of the equation, that may be that they approve lysocell before Lonza finishes the 483 to the rest of the plant. That's completely unrelated to Lonza. We were also told by an expert, that was also in the note on Friday, I should have mentioned that this is someone that used to work for the FDA. So this is as close as you can get to the situation, but they do not know anything about lysocell, to be clear. But they said that the FDA can absolutely approve before they get a 483 response. They do not have to wait for the 483 response. This was not his opinion. This is what he says can happen. Basically, the FDA can do whatever it wants to do. So who knows? Who knows what they do? Do you think the source quote at the end and the actual source in the article are definitively different people? Yes, Glenn, I do. Because the source at the end said a Bristol spokesperson. I'm very confident that it wasn't investor relations leaking to CTFN any of this stuff over the last 3 months. I really don't believe it. It's so vague, and so much of it's so vague that I don't think that's how investor relations or how Bristol would decide to do this. But anything's possible, I guess. Is CBER more focused on COVID vaccines, or are they equally being more focused on lysocell? So they're definitely focused on both, but the people that are finishing this review now that the inspection's over, aren't CBER anymore. The oncology division is the one that's doing the clinical review and doing the overall review. The people that were doing the inspection on the ground was CBER. So at this point, they have to sign off on the 483s. But I mean, let's be clear, the people that went into that inspection weren't working on vaccines, right? I think there's enough resources at this point for them to do both, do the vaccines and do this one drug. I'll remind you that CBER has not had an approved drug since July. So we're not talking about dozens of drugs that they have to work on. Okay, this is one drug. We're at the way end, and all they have to do is sign off on the 483. At this point, it's all about Bristol Myers. Does Bristol Myers get this 483 turned around fast enough? I believe, especially now that we have this note, this article, that Bristol Myers is in a big, deep trouble. That's really a very poor grammar and very poor English. That's what happens when you go live. But anyway, they're in deep trouble when it comes to their liability. Now that we know that there's no other issue but the 483 and that it's in Bristol Myers' control to turn around the 483. It'll all come down to this. There'll be experts on a witness stand, and one set of experts will say, look, these are 10 complex 483s, and they've taken 13, 14, 15 business days to get turned around. And that's why it took Bristol 14, 15 business days to turn this around. And that's why they missed the end of the year deadline, despite having to use diligent efforts to meet the milestones. And then there'll be 4 other experts that say, yes, but the reason why those took 13, 14, 15 business days is because there was no sense of urgency, no commitment to meet a milestone. And they had months before a PDUFA date. And these experts will testify, we could have got this turned around in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 business days if we put the right resources behind it. And it'll be up to a judge to decide which one's right. I think Bristol looks pretty bad if it gets approved the first week of January. And they did not do their best efforts to meet that commitment to make the milestone. It's because of that, and because of the previous efforts that they've shown to make the dates by filing ida-cel in March, refiling ida-cel in July. I feel very good about it. My odds are north of 65%. I'm still very nervous because you're fighting with the incentives, but I feel very good about it. I would think that the stock trades up on Monday. I would hope. I believe it will, but I've been wrong about that. In fact, I thought it would trade up on Thursday and Friday and only traded up because of the CTFN article. I think people are going to be interested in owning this for Tuesday and Wednesday. They will not be interested in owning it once Thursday hits, but you'll have value buyers coming in and probably being interested in buying it below $1.50 for the final week of the year. I don't see it breaking $1.50 on that Thursday. Then I see it kind of decaying maybe a dime a day the following week. The really interesting dynamic here is that where do you think this trades on 12/31 with no approval? And then you have to read into where it will trade if it gets approved on the first half of January. So if you think it trades to 50 cents on 12/31, do you think it goes up to 75 cents or 80 cents or 90 cents when Lysocell is approved versus, the $1.80 it is today? So, there's a lot of interesting trades here. You also are going to have hundreds of millions of shares probably for sale on December 31st for tax purposes, right? A lot of people had a good year. I didn't particularly have a good year, though. If this works, I'll have a good year. And you'll have people dumping this at the end of the year. You'll have people that don't think that there is any litigation value. And I don't know where it's going to trade the last day of the year, but I do think you'll have people that own it for the Lysocell approval in the first half of January. Let me see what else we got here. I had to scroll up, sorry. The spokesperson did not say that the timing is in the hands of both the FDA and Lonza, indicating that BMY is in control of making sure Lonza gets the 483 response done in a timely fashion. That's true. They didn't say that it's ultimately in the control of Lonza. You're right. Looks like FDA works on Christmas Eve, maybe half day. No, Matt. Donald Trump, our esteemed president, he gave Christmas Eve a full business day. Sorry, a full holiday for federal employees. So Christmas Eve is a federal holiday, and there will not be an approval on Christmas Eve. Is it possible that Lonza BMY have already responded to the 483? If the meeting happened early in the week and they responded at the end of the week, yeah, Marty, that is possible. I wouldn't believe that the meeting happened early on in the week since the article was published on that Friday. I would think the meeting happened sometime towards the middle of the week, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. How confident are you that management incentives are not nullified by promises of extra stock-based compensation event CVRs go to zero? Yeah, everybody's asking me this. Of course they can compensate the Juno employees with an extra bonus at the end of the year. I just think that you start going down a very trickery path when you start manipulating the CVR to keep a cancer drug from market to try to miss a deadline by a week or two. And at the board level, 2 of the board members own hundreds of thousands of dollars of the CVR. And the CFO of Bristol Myers is the CFO of Celgene. So you're talking about major reputational damage and possible criminal liability if there's any kind of paperwork or actual, verbal declaration to try to miss a deadline. Even as much so to say as if Samet or somebody at the top of Bristol Myers called someone who's in charge of the regulatory side and said, guys, I really want you to take the full 15 business days here. Let's make sure we get it right. That alone is enough to, if that ever came out or through discovery, ask why. Why didn't they ask, get it right, not make sure you take the full 15 business days? I'm just kind of sick of talking about the incentives. You can't own the CVR if you think they're going to take the 15 business days. I don't know how many times this could be said over and over again. Sell all your CVRs if you think Bristol Myers is trying to orchestrate a 15 business day response to the CRL. Well, I'm sorry, to the 483. I firmly believe, without a shadow of a doubt, they have enough employees between Lonza and Bristol Myers that if they wanted to get even a very complex 483 turned around, they could do it in 10 calendar days. Okay, that's a lot of man hours to do this, and we were told that they could do this by other people. So, and there's no reason to believe it's a super complex 483. If it's such a complex 483, they might be getting a CRL, and that doesn't seem like that's the case either, based on that CTFN article. A CRL seems extraordinarily unlikely to me, based on the wording of the CTFN article. Could we see sub $1 in the last week of the year if there has not been approval by then? Yeah, I think you'd probably get to between 50 cents and $1 on the final day of the year. But, the odds of approval on December 31st might be the highest of all the days. Because again, if FDA knows they want to get this done by the end of the year, they know that December 31st is the end of the year. It counts just as much as December 23rd. So you're going to have a very interesting dynamic between buyers and sellers on that December 31st. And it'll be fascinating to watch. I hope it doesn't come down to that. I'm not insinuating there are tons of problems, just pointing out that a 6-day inspection is very long if the paperwork is done off-site. It suggests a complex 483. 483 response needs to be in so the inspection can be closed out. Yes, FDA can do whatever it wants, but that's typical protocol. Yeah, I know that, Richard, but this was an actual former FDA employee that said the FDA can approve without the 483 response. And he actually put it at, I think, a 51% chance they would do that for some reason. I don't know why. We probably would have already had approval if that was the case, but it takes a full week to even write the inspection report. So, your window for approval probably wouldn't be starting until Monday if they were planning on approving without the 483 response. Everything else in the review is done. That means as long as they have a sufficient response to 483s, this could be approved really quickly. Yes, I think within 24 hours. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your time. This thing is worth 9. Approval by December 31st. Look at mRNA and Pfizer. You've been right all day. There are people who want cheap shares. I don't know what mRNA and Pfizer have to do, unless you're talking about the vaccine stuff for the inspectors, but thank you. Believe in yourself. Thanks. The vaccines are already approved anyway. CBER has nothing to do but twiddle its thumbs down. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Is CBER busy with the vaccines? I mean, all the plants are pumping out vaccine right now. So I don't think they're busy with the vaccines, CBER, at all. They might have to be working on additional plant inspections in the coming months, but that's done. I mean, the emergency authorization use is already there, and this is a new drug approval to get on the market. So I'm not concerned. Assuming approval does happen by the end of the year, odds of it happening this week versus odds of happening next week. You had said in an earlier YouTube that you expected approval in the last week of the year. Yeah, I'm kind of torn by it, Marty. If it doesn't happen this week, I'm going to be more nervous than I was that didn't happen last week. So I could see why it would trade down, is my only point. Do I think it will happen this week or next week? My gut tells me they respond to the 483s by Monday and it gets approved on Wednesday. But I haven't, this is totally unprecedented. Anybody that speculates on this is just purely doing that, speculating. All you can do is try to go by how many days have gone by since the inspection, how long it might take to respond to a complex 483, and whether or not the FDA and Bristol Myers are working together towards a deadline. That's all you can go by. I feel extraordinarily confident that there's no CRL coming. At this point, I probably wouldn't even be 5% at a CRL because Bristol Myers knows what's in the 483. And if the 483 was as complex or as bad, I don't know if you use the word complex or use the word bad, then I think that you would have heard something in the CTFN article about Bristol Myers being concerned about ultimate approval. The incentives of this leaker are puzzling, right? What isn't in the CTFN article, right? There's no word about 483s. They specifically said they don't know if there were 483s. There's no word in the CTFN article if Bristol Myers is confident that it can get done by the end of the year. They didn't mention that to employees. There's no word from the Bristol spokesperson about what the gating factors are between now and the end of the year that can keep it from being approved. Just that the timing is up to the FDA, right? And that's a great point that somebody made. Again, that's all grounds for litigation. If it's Lonza that has to respond to the 483s and they don't respond until December 30th, well, how can you say the timing is up to the FDA? The timing there was up to Lonza. And I think they're being very careful with their words. Very careful with their words. I'm a little disappointed about the lack of cat questions, but that's probably because I didn't lead with the cat or kittens on the YouTube. I do appreciate 75 of you showed up on a Sunday to hear me bullshit. Thank you. I thought it was appropriate to talk about the CTFN article. It's an ethical gray area for me what to disclose and when to disclose these things, because people have the right to trade on the articles that pay for them. But I think the public has the right to know what's inside them, because I think in general, the whole idea of paid articles with quote unquote inside information disgusts me. So it has to get out eventually. And by Bloomberg reporting on it, I feel like it's appropriate I can report on it. People had hours to trade on it on Friday. And anybody that subscribed to CTFN definitely has already traded on this. When will we know that ide-cel submission does not get a major amendment? It's a great question too. I think it's very unlikely that ide-cel gets a major amendment. Major amendments are rare. I know it happened with liso-cel, but they're rare. And they usually don't happen until the final few weeks before a PDUFA. But look, if ide-cel was going to get a major amendment, it could happen maybe. It can happen at any day. And that's a black swan that's lingering that could definitely happen for the CVR. I believe strongly that when Bristol Myers resubmitted their NDA, they really put in a thorough package to make sure that they didn't get another RTF. And it seems extraordinarily unlikely to me that they would then be hit. Amazing. No, that they would be hit with a major amendment. So, but that could happen. You could wake up any day to an ide-cel major amendment, and that would kill the CVR. But then you'd have, again, pretty amazing litigation, right? It got an RTF, and then it got a major amendment. But clearly, that's going to be open to discovery about how Bristol Myers, a company that never gets RTFs, literally ever, and also I don't know when they've ever gotten a major amendment, they get both on the same application. It reeks of incompetence. Is Lonza's speed of 483 review considered a part of BMY's responsibility for litigation purposes? They're doing it with Bristol Myers. I think Lonza probably cares more about the FDA. Lonza cares about its client, Bristol Myers, and I think it cares about what the FDA is asking them. And it's my belief that if the FDA went down there at the beginning of December to inspect, the FDA has communicated to Lonza the time frame that they want, and no, and that time frame is known to Lonza. A lot of people think that there's some sort of this is just business as usual, that Lonza got the 483 and it's ho hum ho hum ho hum. And when they get back to the FDA will take their sweet time to turn it around, and this will get approved at the end of January or something. And I just have a different view. I think that they missed the PDUFA date, and this drug can save lives, keep people out of hospitals, and there might be political pressure that we don't know about. The reason why they went and inspected in the first place, and I think they're all working together to try to get this approved. Kevin, I agree with you. Lonza is getting an approval of the facility overall. In so much as BMS is pressuring them, they may say we want the full 15 business days because it's our facility, not yours. So Richard, I very much know your views here. You're very concerned about the 15 full business days. You should sell your CVR. You should sell the CVR, Richard. I'm telling you, it's not worth the stress. But I believe they don't want to piss off the FDA. And the reason why they were inspecting on December 3rd is because the FDA has a reason to have inspected on December 3rd. And if you believe that reason is to get this approved as soon as possible, particularly by the end of the year, and Bristol Myers has not told us anything other than that. There's been no AK that says we don't expect to get this approved by the end of the year. There's been no AK that we have a very intense Form 483 and don't expect it to be responded to by December 31st. None of these things have come out from a legal perspective that they might have to do if they knew for sure the CVR was dead, and it hasn't happened. Is Maisie's poor behavior making you rethink your cat position? Thank you for sharing your cat insights. Big Red. Thank you, Big Red. What's your favorite cat? Do you have any idea as to what portion of the actual 43 response is prepared for BMY and what portion is prepared by Lonza? I was told by Bristol IR, or someone was told to Bristol IR, I listened, that Lonza prepares the 483 with consultation from Bristol. Now, mind you, Lonza has no other approved products or no other products that are going to be commercially supplied right now from that facility. So if the FDA has problems in other parts of the plant, when those products come up for NDA approval, the FDA usually goes back and inspects the plant again. They don't usually waive it. They only waived it during COVID for some plants. So the FDA could very well go back and re-inspect those parts of the plant. I think we're good. I wasn't expecting this to be this long. And the dog's barking at pool toys. That's what the dog's barking at. All right, take care, everybody. Good chat. I'm sure there'll be 8 more things that happen next week, and I'll see you then. Have a nice Sunday. Bye.